Why was everyone laughing except her? The desert range shimmered beneath a haze of morning heat, the kind that bent light and patience alike. Diffused sunlight poured over the sand, bleaching everything pale gold. A scoreboard blinked red, 15 misses. 15 failures by the best shooters the base could offer. And yet the laughter rolled on, thick with arrogance. A massive SEAL gunnery sergeant, Rex Dalton, stepped to the firing line, boots grinding dust into the concrete. His grin was a blade. "Any snipers want to try?" he jeered, voice carrying like gunfire. Behind him, 3 or 4 SEALs snorted and elbowed each other, filming every second. A spectacle, a show, because failure was funny when it wasn't yours. At the edge of the line, a woman brushed dust from her rifle scope. No response, no glance, no defense, just a calm, practiced motion. Lieutenant Mira Hale, blonde hair tied tight at the nape of her neck. Her reflection flickered in the scope glass, steady eyes, pale and unreadable. The narrator's voice would drop soft here, almost like wind. When arrogance speaks louder than skill, how long does silence stay quiet? Mira's watch displayed 56 BPM, resting heart rate of a predator at peace. She unlocked her gear container with a soft metallic click that echoed across the still air. Every movement was deliberate, ceremonial. Glass clean, parallax checked, dope card slid into her sleeve. Wind speed, temperature gradient, and distance already solved in her mind. 47 seconds, complete setup. The internal base record was 2 minutes 5. She just broke it without a word. Dalton watched, expecting her to look up, to defend herself, to explain. She didn't. The lack of reaction unsettled him more than defiance ever could. Mira's thumb brushed along the turret clicks. Each tiny snap sounded like punctuation in an unwritten story, memorized, intimate, carved into muscle over years of repetition. Around her, the desert smelled of iron and dust. Heat was already rising, whispering across her boots. She leaned her back against a cinderblock wall, posture relaxed yet perfectly aligned with the range entrance. Nothing in her world happened by accident. Her phone rested on the bench beside a small mirror, angled 45 degrees, covering her blind spot. Rescue blade tucked in her boot collar, within reach. 2 seconds, maybe less. She spoke rarely, but her presence said more than most voices could. Across the line, a nervous young private Torres approached, fresh from basic, eyes too bright for the desert. "Where'd you train, ma'am?" he asked, voice uncertain, more curiosity than courage. Mira's smile was faint, a ghost of warmth. "Somewhere the wind changes who you are, changes what you believe about yourself." He didn't understand, but he nodded anyway. Maybe one day he would. Then Dalton's boots appeared again, loud and deliberate. "We're not doing yoga here, Lieutenant." Laughter followed him like smoke. Corporal Voss brushed against Mira's shoulder on purpose, knocking a box of cartridges to the ground. They scattered with metallic clatter. Mira didn't flinch, didn't glare. She simply crouched and began sorting the brass by neck expansion, checking each case for microscopic stress fractures. 90 seconds, perfect rhythm. Every move mechanical, ritualized. But her eyes never left Dalton's boots. Brooks, the armorer, 30 years and too much wisdom, leaned on a crate, watching. 3,800 meters, he said casually, wind 7 to 10 mph. "What's your hold?" Without looking up, Mira answered, 6.4 to 7.2 mils left at 5,000 feet density altitude. "But I'd split 68 to 70. Depends on mirage structure and thermal layering." Brooks froze. Those numbers weren't guesses. They were equations living in her blood. He gave a slow nod, the kind men reserve for respect, and walked off silently, rewriting every assumption he had about her. Dalton caught the exchange. His grin faltered, only slightly, but enough. Somewhere down the line, a SEAL muttered, "Who the hell is she?" No one answered, because no one knew, and those who might have didn't talk. The loudspeaker cracked. "Target set, 3800 meters, steel plate, gusting 7 to 12. 15 misses glared from the scoreboard. Dalton stretched theatrically, rolling his shoulders for the crowd. "Gonna be a long day for some people," he said. The chuckles returned, low and confident. Mira adjusted her rear bag by millimeters, recalibrated her natural point of aim, then stepped back from the line. Waiting, watching, calculating. Her silence made them nervous. It always did. The laughter kept going through 15 more misses, until one quiet shot would later change everything. A shadow crossed the sand. Colonel March, silver hair, fox-sharp eyes. He positioned himself exactly where Mira's blind spot should be, testing her. Without turning, she shifted her stance by 3 degrees, bringing him into peripheral view. March smiled faintly. Test passed. On the far side of the range, Park, the unit's cyber specialist, sat beneath a shade tarp, tablet glowing. An encrypted ping crossed his screen. "Target set at 3,800 today." He frowned. Not protocol, wrong bandwidth signature. He began tracing the signal, fingers moving fast. Something wasn't right. Near the firing line, a rookie brushed a trigger during safety check. Muzzle swung, crossing the line. In 4 seconds, Mira was there. She rotated the rifle upward, controlled the private's wrist, froze the movement without injury. Calm precision. Dalton's growl came from behind her. "Where'd you learn that trick?" She checked the private's hands, steadying him, then turned. "From people who don't talk." Dalton's smirk cracked clean in half. He stepped forward again, raising his voice for everyone. 15 misses. Any snipers wanna try?" Phones came up. Laughter rolled like surf. At the far end, Brooks shook his head. "Disgraceful," he muttered. Mira stepped forward. No words, just a wind probe planted in the sand, old school, almost forgotten. A ritual gesture. Then she kneeled, the world narrowing to motion and silence. Dalton chuckled. "This should be good." $20 said she wouldn't even get close. Park scrolled through her personnel file. Clearance levels redacted, gaps between 2016 and 2021 blacked out. "Ghost Annex," whispered in the metadata. He looked up sharply. Military police were repositioning quietly, strategically around the range, overlapping fields of fire, but their focus wasn't her. It was Dalton. Park's pulse quickened. This was a setup, a stage. Dalton pulled out his wallet to settle a bet. A photo slipped free, 13 stars arranged in a circle. March saw it from across the range. His smile vanished. A text left his phone, encrypted. A trap snapping closed. Brooks crouched beside Mira. "You sure about this, Lieutenant? If you miss in front of them, they'll never let you forget it." "I know," she said simply. "I'm counting on it." Brooks blinked, then reached into his kit and handed her a single brass cartridge, polished bright. "This one's on me. Hand-loaded, best lot I've got." Mira inspected it carefully, thumb brushing the primer. "Thank you, Gunny." She chambered it slow, deliberate. The sound echoed like a countdown. Around her the noise faded. Even the wind seemed to wait. Dalton puffed his chest. "Clock's ticking, Lieutenant. We don't have all day." Her breathing changed, box breathing. 4 counts in, hold, 4 counts out, hold. Her BPM dropped 52. When her eyes opened again, they were different, focused beyond human. Park whispered to Brooks. She just calculated 2 wind layers in her head. "Ghosts," Brooks murmured. "They were trained to do that." March's eyes narrowed, confirmation. Rex shouted for the crowd, "If she misses, she's done here. No excuses." Applause and mocking claps followed. Phones lifted like weapons. Mira unfolded her shooting mat with precision, smoothed each corner, adjusted her rear bag, aligned her body. Her thumb found the trigger, feather-light contact. The rifle became part of her breathing. Scope, reticle, target, nothing else. Brooks whispered, "She's holding 68 to 70 mils left. Split-layer wind reading. Ghost Annex math." Park nodded, awe creeping in. They had to invent new calculations to survive. Dalton barked a laugh. "Magazine's empty, no cheating." She didn't answer, worked the bolt. A dummy round popped free and hit the sand. She hand-fed a single cartridge, slow as prayer. As she adjusted her collar, a tattoo glinted, serpent eating its own tail. A rob arose, next to block letters G7. March stiffened. Recognition struck like lightning. He stepped back into the shadows, watching. Dry fire, click, clean break, then the real round. Shot one crack. Mirage rippled outward, board flickered, edge hit. The crowd erupted, laughter, surprise, disbelief. She didn't flinch, just adjusted 2 mils left, 70 mils hold, felt the wind shift on her neck 3 seconds earlier. Her body was the instrument. Reload, deep breath. Park's tablet buzzed, urgent message. Internal investigation active, stand by for arrest authorization. His stomach turned to ice. The MPs weren't here for her, they were here for Dalton. Everything made sense now. The whole show had been bait. Mira's pulse slowed further, 48 BPM. Her finger rested on the trigger, patient. Around her, the crowd fell silent. Dalton's confidence cracked visibly, sweat beading on his temple. Someone whispered, "Who is she?" Only March knew, and he wasn't speaking. She exhaled, eyes on the shimmer of the target 2.4 miles away. Heat rippled like ghosts dancing over the horizon. She read the wind with her skin. Adjusted, calculated, felt. Talk is easy, results echo. Wind shifted 2 to 3 mph clockwise. Mirage tilted left. Without hesitation, Mira switched shoulders, off-handed stance, cross-eyed dominant, a technique almost no one could master. The crowd murmured confusion. Brooks whispered, "She's changing dominant eye mid-shot." Shot 2. The sound came after the bullet had already traveled halfway. Impact. Dead center. The crowd froze, phone still recording. Dalton's jaw dropped. Then, before disbelief could settle, shot 3. 3 seconds later, same hole. Park whispered, "She's stitching the same point at 2.4 miles. That's not supposed to be possible." The board confirmed. 1 MOA group, 3,800 m. Silence fell heavy, absolute. March crossed his arms. A faint smile ghosted across his lips, cold, measured. Mira cycled the bolt, caught the spinning brass midair, pocketed it. No trace, no waste. She stood, brushed sand from her knees, and finally spoke, calm, clear, anchored. 3,800 meters is the distance for people who live by the wind, who learn to read what others can't see, who survived by being better when it mattered most. No one breathed. Dalton's mouth opened, closed, opened again, no words. Voiceover tone returned soft, resonant. Is your heart racing? Then you know what silence feels like when it finally speaks. Rex Dalton didn't move at first. The desert had gone too quiet for him to know how. His hands hung loose at his sides, jaw locked, chest tight. Around him the crowd stayed frozen, half disbelief, half awe. The laughter had died, leaving only the faint metallic ring of the wind probe fluttering weakly in the sand. Colonel March broke the silence first. Slow, deliberate steps across the concrete. He knelt beside Mira's rifle, inspected the chamber, verified the range data, and nodded to himself once. Then he took a form from his coat pocket, official range documentation, scrawled her name, the distance, the grouping, the witnesses. His signature cut the air like a final verdict. 3,800 meters. Hale, M1 MOA confirmed. The range scoreboard blinked, then locked on the new record. Mira stood still, quiet amid the weight of it all. No smile, no pride, just breathing steady and slow like a tide pulling back from shore. The world always wanted noise, but she'd learned long ago that silence carried further. Dalton's throat worked before his voice found him. "Ma'am," he said finally, voice brittle, stripped of swagger. "Respect." He swallowed hard, forced the word out like penance. Mira nodded once. No gloating, no speech, just acknowledgement, professional, dignified. Behind the line, Brooks exhaled softly, relief washing over the rough edges of his face. "Hell of a shot, Lieutenant," he murmured. But Mira didn't answer. Her eyes were on Colonel March, and his eyes, cold, precise, fox-sharp, were on Rex Dalton. That was when the MPs started moving. Two of them in matching step, boots whispering across the sand. Calm, deliberate. "Gunnery Sergeant Dalton," one said, "you're wanted for questioning regarding an ongoing investigation." Dalton blinked, confusion slicing through his fatting arrogance. What investigation?" "Internal matters," came the reply. "Please come with us." The crowd parted, phones still raised. The same men who'd been laughing a few minutes ago were now silent, recording every step as Rex was escorted off the line, hands not yet cuffed, but the message was clear. Park, the cyber specialist, watched through his screen as encrypted notifications streamed in, authorization orders, internal logs, digital seals being broken in real time. It wasn't random. This entire range test had been a setup. A controlled environment. A trap. Mira had been the bait. March didn't move to stop the MPs. He didn't have to. His expression was impassive, a quiet satisfaction that justice, after years, was finally catching up. Park looked up from his tablet, face pale. He moved toward Brooks, voice low. 13-star insignia on Dalton's photo. That's the same sigil connected to the smuggling ring Ghost Annex was tracking. Brooks's eyes narrowed. "You're saying?" "I'm saying she didn't come here to prove anything. She came here to close a case." The wind picked up again, carrying dust over the range. Mira collected her spent brass, slipped it into a small pouch, folded her mat with surgical precision, and slung her rifle over one shoulder. Every movement told the same story, discipline born of ghosts, of losses that never left. No one spoke as she walked off the line. Even Dalton, half escorted, couldn't find words. Some truths are too heavy to argue with. That afternoon, the base mess hall was unusually quiet. News travels faster than wind on a range. By lunch, every corridor hummed with the same phrase whispered under breath: 3,800 meters, 1 MOA. The kind of record that rewrites legend. But Mira didn't eat. She sat alone outside under the half-shadow of a hangar, wiping down her rifle. The same precision, the same care. Not for show, for ritual. Because it wasn't about pride. It was about control. Control in a world that had once stolen it from her. March approached without sound. He'd always been good at that. He stood a few feet away before speaking. "You knew it would happen that way." "I suspected," she said quietly. "Rex was too confident for too long. No one stays that loud unless they're hiding something." March's expression didn't change. "He'll talk." "He won't need to. His files already did." A pause. Then she looked up, eyes narrowed slightly. "But he's not the last, is he?" March hesitated. No, he was a door, the first one that had to open. Her gaze drifted back to the desert horizon. "I don't like doors," she said softly. "They never close the same way twice." He left without answering. The memorial hall was silent when she entered. Heavy silence, the kind that sits in your chest and stays there. Photographs lined the walls. 6 faces, 6 names, 6 reasons. The Ghost Annex, her team, her family. She walked slowly past each portrait, fingertips tracing the edges of the frames. Hopefield, medic, saved 14 lives in one night before losing her own. King, her mentor, the man who taught her to read wind with the skin of her neck. Rook, breacher, the one who stayed behind when extraction failed. She whispered their names like prayers. When she reached the uncarved star at the end of the line, the one reserved for the fallen still unacknowledged, her voice broke into a whisper. "Not me, never me, only them." The ceremony that followed was small but sacred. Families seated in the front rows, uniforms pressed, faces pale from years of waiting for closure. Mira stood at the podium, reading each name slowly, carefully, as if she could bring them home with syllables alone. Her voice never wavered, but her hands trembled once, just once, when she spoke King's name. After her, Colonel March stepped up, carrying a leather folder sealed with classification stamps. He began reading from a partial declassification order, voice even but reverent. Ghost Annex provided covert overwatch in operations never publicly recorded. They operated where physics bent and records vanished. They saved lives that will never know their names. On the projection screen behind him, a digital record updated in real time. 3800 M, Hail, M1 MOA confirmed. The crowd rose in quiet applause, not loud, not celebratory, just acknowledgement. The kind that honors silence with silence. When it ended, Mira stayed behind as the families filed out slowly. Hopefield's mother, a woman gray with grief and years of unanswered questions, approached her, voice trembling. Thank you for bringing her story home, for making them remember. Mira tried to answer, but her voice cracked. She brought me home first, ma'am. Then King's younger brother stepped forward, older now than King had ever been. He pressed something into her hand, a small brass compass worn smooth. He carried it on every mission. He'd want you to have it. Mira closed her hand around it, felt its weight. I'll carry it forward, I promise. Rook's widow waited last. He talked about you in his last letter, she said softly. Said you were the one who'd finish it, make sure the truth came out. Mira bowed her head. It's done. The widow's eyes glistened. Good, then rest when you can. Ghosts deserve that much. Mira nodded, but she didn't believe it. Rest wasn't for the living who'd walked out. Not yet. Outside, the air was sharp and dry. Sunset turned the desert copper. Brooks found her by the memorial fountain, hands buried in her pockets, staring at the fading horizon. You okay? He asked quietly. She shook her head. No. He gave a small, grim smile. Good, means you're still human. Then her voice changed, lower, urgent. Bishop's alive. Brooks froze. What? He just sent a coded message. Same encryption key. He's compromised, but he's out there. Someone's hunting what's left of us. Brooks straightened, instinctively scanning the area. Who? Someone with access. Someone high enough to erase ghosts from records, and they thought we were all dead. Brooks swore under his breath. What do you need? A quiet room, no windows. You've got both. When? Now. Inside the command annex, fluorescent light hummed over classified files spread across a table. Park was already there, tablet glowing, code strings cascading like falling rain. I traced the intrusion, he said. Source leads back to Washington, level 4 access, someone close to Directorate Command. Mira's jaw tightened. Name. Park hesitated. Deputy Director Nathan Cross. The silence that followed was heavier than any gunshot. That's a career-ending accusation, he whispered. Not if he's already dirty, she replied. Pull everything, classified, unclassified, whispers, rumors. I want it all. 1 hour, he said automatically. 30 minutes, she countered. He nodded, understood. The clock had started again. Midnight, cargo bay, shadows long between steel containers. Footsteps echoed. A man stepped into view, face half lit, half forgotten. Ethan Bishop, Ghost Annex, presumed dead since 2019. He looked older, scarred, alive but haunted. You shouldn't have found me, he said quietly. I wasn't looking, Mira replied. You found me. He handed her a small encrypted drive, black, unmarked, humming faintly. Everything you need's on there. 5 years of proof. Cross has been selling operational intel to foreign buyers. Every ambush, every dead team, all him. Her fingers closed around the drive, knuckles white. Why come forward now? Because I'm tired of running, he said. And because you're the only one left who'll do it the right way. Legally. Justice, he corrected. That's the only kind that lasts. Mira studied his face, every line, every scar. There was no part of him untouched by betrayal. The others, she asked softly. Scattered, angry, they want blood, but I'm holding them back for now. She nodded once, then we moved fast. In the secured briefing room, the drive came alive on her laptop, screens flooding with evidence. Account numbers, dead drops, encrypted chats, covert payments. It was all there. Every mission that went wrong because someone had sold them out. Every death had a dollar value. Bishop leaned over her shoulder. We walked into those traps because of him. Every name on that wall, his fault. Her hands trembled once, then stilled. Then we finish it, legally, completely. They both placed a hand on the drive. 5 years of pain compressed into one decision. At dawn, Mira delivered it to General Morrison, 3-star, uncompromising, the kind of man whose words still meant something. He scrolled through the files, jaw tightening, eyes hard. You understand what this means, Lieutenant? Yes, sir. Joint Task Force warrants, full investigation, congressional hearings, lives ruined. Her voice was steady. Good. Morrison met her gaze, then nodded once. I'll start the chain of custody myself. Park sent out the encrypted authorization. Servers hummed to life. The machine of justice began to move, slow, unstoppable. Morrison frowned suddenly at his screen. Meeting location moved, 4 hours early. Ankara coordinates. Mira's pulse ticked once, then settled. The wind outside picked up again, carrying sand like whispers. She stepped out into the dawn light, hair lifting gently in the desert breeze. Her eyes were sharp now. Certain dangerous. Ghosts don't boast, she murmured. They group. And somewhere in that silence, something darker was already moving. Fade to black. Why was the meeting moved up? That question pulsed through Mira's mind as the transport plane banked through pale dawn light over the Mediterranean. Nothing in military bureaucracy moved early, ever. If the meeting's time had changed, it wasn't scheduling, it was fear. Below, Ankara stretched out beneath the haze, gray rooftops, river veins of traffic, heat rising off the tarmac. Mira's hand rested on her rifle case, not for comfort, for certainty. Across from her, Bishop sat rigid, eyes shadowed by exhaustion. He looked like a man halfway between penance and death. Park was beside him, tablet on his knees, fingers dancing over code. Cross's secure line just went dark, he said quietly. Encrypted sweep hit his office at 400. He's erasing himself. Bishop swore softly. Then he knows we're coming. Mira's gaze stayed fixed on the horizon. Good, let him. The pilot's voice cracked through the comms. Touchdown in 3, conditions clear, local assets standing by. Mira closed her eyes briefly, box breathing. The ritual steadied her like always, 4 counts in, 4 counts hold, 4 counts out. Every breath was borrowed time. As the plane touched down, the world outside shimmered with heat. The runway guards saluted without expression, eyes tracking the trio as they descended the ramp. A convoy waited, 3 unmarked SUVs, matte black, engines already humming. General Morrison's liaison, a Turkish intelligence officer named Iren Kaya, greeted them briskly. Welcome to Ankara, you'll be staying off-grid. We've cleared a secure compound outside city limits. Intel says Cross made contact with a private security courier. Russian contract, not locals. Mira's jaw tightened. He's buying an exit. Kaya nodded grimly, or burning the evidence. The convoy moved fast through the outskirts, past rusted warehouses, cracked billboards, stray dogs that scattered in the dust. Bishop stared out the window, voice low. He'll never face trial. Men like Cross don't run unless they've built another hole to crawl into. Then we dig deeper, Mira said. The silence that followed wasn't disagreement. It was belief tempered by scars. The safe house was small, isolated, old Soviet construction, reinforced walls, single entrance, double lock. Inside, the air smelled of metal and dust. Maps covered one wall, digital feeds the other. Park set up immediately, connecting to satellite uplinks through a portable antenna. He muttered half to himself, triangulating his signal pattern through last known network node. If he's still transmitting, we'll find him. Make it fast, Mira said. Bishop leaned against the wall, arms crossed. His movements were slower now, limping slightly. The old injury had never healed right. You need to rest, Mira told him quietly. I'll rest when Cross is in cuffs. That's not rest, that's revenge. His eyes met hers, haunted, sharp. You think I don't know the difference? Mira held his gaze. I think you used to. Park's voice cut through the tension. Got something. He tapped the tablet, bringing up a thermal map. Encrypted data relay triggered 30 minutes ago, outskirts industrial zone. Warehouse D47. Same ghost frequency used by Ghost Annex Ops 6 years ago. Cross isn't just hiding, he's using your old network protocols. Mira stared at the pulsing red dot. He's inside our own playbook. Bishop's mouth tightened. Then he knows how we hunt. They geared up fast, minimal loadouts, low profile. No insignia, no names. Mira checked her scope twice, then once more, fingertips moving with ritual calm. The compass from King hung around her neck, faint metal against skin, a reminder, a promise. She caught her reflection in the scope's glass for a heartbeat, the same face, the same silence. But different eyes now, older, harder. The warehouse district smelled of oil and old iron. Streetlights flickered in amber fog. They moved in pairs, Mira and Bishop covering the flanks, Park running overwatch from a rooftop node. Static filled the comms briefly, then cleared. Park's voice came through in a whisper. Thermals show 2 contacts inside, one stationary, one packing, looks like a meeting. Mira signaled silently, 2 fingers move. They advanced along the wall, boots silent on broken gravel. Through a cracked window, Mira caught a flash of light, a phone screen, brief reflection. Her pulse slowed even further. 50 beats per minute, calm. Focused. She peered through the scope. A man stood near the center of the warehouse, suit pressed, hair graying at the temples. Cross. He was smaller than she remembered from the files. Men like that usually were. Beside him, a courier, tall, armed, impatient. He handed Cross a black case. Cross opened it. Stacks of drives glinted under the hanging light. Bishop's whisper crackled in her earpiece. Proof, he's selling the rest. Not today, she said softly. Then movement, outside perimeter. Park's voice rose, urgent. We've got heat signatures west approach. 6-7, armed, tacked formation. Bishop swore, he's got backup. Private security, Mira guessed. Non-state contractors. She shifted position, found elevation on a loading platform. The world slowed down, the wind shifted. She breathed once deeply, then spoke softly into comms. Park, lights out. The warehouse plunged into darkness. Chaos followed. Shouts, gunmetal clatter, flashlights slicing through the black. Cross ducked, dragging the case toward an exit. The courier raised his rifle, too slow. Mira's shot cut through the dark. Single crack. The man dropped before his finger could reach the trigger. Bishop stormed through the side entrance, moving like a storm contained by bone. 2 shots precise, 2 more bodies fell. Park rerouted exterior cameras, locking down gates. You're sealed in, he warned. Make it count. Cross stumbled backward, knocking over a metal chair. Mira moved like shadow, rifle low, eyes forward. Her voice was steady. Stop running, Nathan. He froze at the sound of his name. "Lieutenant Hale," he said, trembling laughter in his throat. "You're not supposed to be alive." "Neither were they," she said. He raised a pistol, hands shaking. "You don't understand," he hissed. "You think this was greed. You think I did this for money." "Then what?" "Survival. You think your government protects you. They used us, all of us. Ghost Annex was never meant to survive." Her jaw flexed. "You sold them." "I preserved what was left," he snapped. "Every op, every team, they were already written off. I just made sure their losses bought something." Her finger found the trigger's break point. "They bought you, that's all." Before she could squeeze, Bishop appeared behind Cross, gun raised. "Don't," Mira said quickly. He didn't hear her or didn't care. His hand trembled. "This is for Rook," he whispered. Cross's mouth opened, but before he could speak, Park's voice cut through again, high with panic. "Thermals incoming, external reinforcements. 10+ moving fast. Extraction compromised." Mira's instinct screamed. She moved first, slamming into Bishop, throwing his aim off. The shot went wild. Cross dropped to the ground, rolled, sprinted toward the emergency exit. "Go," she shouted to Park. "Lock him out." "Trying." Metal doors slammed shut, but not fast enough. Cross slipped through, disappearing into the maze of shipping containers beyond. Bishop cursed, staggering up. "You just let him go. I saved you from doing something you can't undo." His voice broke. "You think I care about that?" "Yes," she said, breathing hard. "You do, you're still Ghost." They stared at each other for a long second. Two soldiers with the same ghosts, standing on opposite sides of mercy. Then Park's voice again, lower now, urgent. "Extraction point compromised. We need to move, now." They slipped out through a maintenance corridor, silent and fast, blending into the industrial sprawl as headlights swept past behind them. The city swallowed the sounds of gunfire. No witnesses, no answers, just the echo of what almost happened. An hour later in the safehouse, the air was thick with silence. Bishop paced the room, anger and guilt warring in his eyes. Mira sat at the table, compass in her hand, thumb tracing the worn metal. "He's gone," Bishop muttered. "Everything we had, proof, leverage, it's gone." "Not everything," Park said, tapping his tablet. "The drives Cross dropped before he ran, they were broadcasting. I caught a data fragment before blackout. There's more to this. Something called Operation Meridian." Mira's eyes lifted. "Show me." Lines of text filled the screen. Encrypted mission logs, redacted names, coordinates scattered across continents. Park pointed to one entry. Meridian was a containment protocol, designed to wipe all data linking Ghost Annex to certain covert actions. If Cross triggered this, he wasn't just covering tracks. He was burying history. Bishop's voice was rough. "Our history." "Our people," Mira said softly. "The ones who died for something they'll erase." For the first time her composure cracked. Not loud, just enough. She stood, walked to the window, and stared at the distant lights of the city. "You ever wonder," she murmured, "if we became the thing we were trained to fight? Invisible, disposable, convenient myths." Bishop's answer was quiet. "We were never myths, Mira, just ghosts nobody wanted to see." She turned. "Then maybe it's time they did." Park looked between them. "You're talking exposure." "Legal exposure," she said. "Chain of custody still with Morrison. If we can prove Cross is deleting archives, we make it public. Congressional record, no more shadows." Bishop shook his head. "You'll destroy your career." She met his gaze. "It's not about careers anymore." He stared at her for a long moment, then nodded once. "Then we finish it together." Outside, the first light of dawn was breaking again, thin, pale, uncertain. Mira stepped onto the balcony, wind lifting her hair. The compass gleamed faintly in her palm. For a moment, she could almost hear King's voice again. The wind doesn't lie, but people do. Learn which one to trust. She closed her hand around it, jaw set, eyes hard. Park's voice echoed from inside. Transmission uplink ready. Once we send this, there's no going back. She didn't turn around. That's the point, she said. The wind rose, carrying the smell of dust and diesel. Ghosts don't rest. They move with purpose. And somewhere across the city, Nathan Cross was already planning his next move. Fade out. How do you hunt a man who built the shadows himself? The question echoed in Mira's mind as the convoy cut through Ankara's outskirts under fatting dawn. The city bled into open terrain, wheat fields, rusting fences, a road that led nowhere visible. Inside the SUV, silence had weight. Bishop sat in the passenger seat, bruised knuckles raw from frustration. Park rode in back, eyes glued to the tablet's flickering glow, code strings cascading in reflection across his glasses. Cross has gone dark again, Park muttered. No active cell, no sat ping, but I'm picking up residual electromagnetic noise east of the industrial ring. He's using legacy Ghost Annex encryption nodes, piggybacking our old comm networks. So he's turning our own ghosts against us, Bishop said, voice low. Mira kept her eyes on the road. Then he's forgotten who wrote those systems. The SUV hummed over cracked asphalt. For a moment, none of them spoke. The road stretched endlessly forward, just like the fight had for years. Mira's voice broke the silence, softer this time. How did you survive, Bishop? He stared out the window for a long moment. Luck. A bad extraction. I was declared KIA before the bodies were recovered. I stayed gone. Figured the world was better off thinking we were all dead. You could have reached out, she said quietly. Who was left to call, he answered. The air hung heavy between them. Guilt, grief, unspoken debts. Park cleared his throat, trying to cut through it. Satellite confirms Cross met a contact before the blackout. Civilian cover ID Dr. Lena Voss. Works for a data analytics shell firm in Prague. But that company's been flagged twice by NATO oversight. Money laundering front. Which means he's trying to move the intel through a proxy, Mira concluded. Or he already did, Bishop added grimly. Mira pressed harder on the accelerator. The vehicle surged forward. Then we don't have time. By mid-morning, they reached the extraction field outside the capital, an old decommissioned airstrip, once used for drone testing. Now it was dust and memory. The heat shimmered again. Always heat, as if the world kept trying to burn the truth away. Brooks was already there, standing beside a waiting Hello. His expression was lined with exhaustion and concern. I heard about the op, he said, voice gravelly. March briefed me. Cross slipped the net. Temporarily, Mira replied. Brooks nodded, understanding the unspoken weight behind that word. Temporarily meant not forever. Bishop stepped forward. We need air support. Full recon sweep along the freight corridor. Cross won't go far on foot. Brooks crossed his arms. This isn't an authorized pursuit. You're off record. Whatever you do next, no one's covering you. Mira met his eyes. They never did before. He studied her for a long moment, then sighed. You've got one bird, half a tank of fuel, and 3 hours before command flags you missing. After that, you're ghosts again. She nodded once. That's enough. As the Hello rotors spun to life, Brooks stepped closer. You ever wonder how this ends, Lieutenant? Every day, she said, but wondering's not part of the job. He gave a tired smile. Maybe it should be. The Hello cut low across dry plains, hugging the contours of the land. Mira sat beside the door, wind tearing through her hair, rifle slung across her lap. The compass swung with each shift of air, steady, patient, eternal. Bishop's voice came through comms. Grid sweep complete, no visual on Cross. Park added from the console, but his encrypted burst transmission repeated 3 times in the last 10 minutes. Same shortwave frequency. He's nearby, testing signal strength. Could be trying to reach Voss remotely. Mira's eyes narrowed. Track it. I'm on it, Park said. Triangulating got him, 23 miles northeast, mountain corridor, abandoned relay station. Put us down, Mira ordered. The helo banked sharply, kicking up sand and static. They disembarked into blinding light, 3 silhouettes against a golden wasteland. The relay station loomed ahead, rusted steel, antennas snapped by years of wind. Desert swallowed its perimeter. Mira crouched behind a dune, glassed the horizon through her scope. 2 vehicles, 1 SUV, 1 truck, 5 men total. Cross isn't visible yet. Bishop chambered around, then he's inside. Park's voice came low. Jamming field active, we're on our own. She nodded once. We go silent. They moved in formation, fluid, efficient. No wasted steps, no hesitation. Every motion muscle memory from years of training that never left the body, even when belief did. Mira's breathing slowed to that familiar rhythm, the calm before decisions that couldn't be undone. They breached quietly, no flash, no warning. Inside, the air was thick with dust, and the hum of old machines still trying to remember purpose. A monitor flickered weakly on the far wall. Lines of code scrolled down, the same architecture she'd written 6 years ago for Ghost Annex data relay security. Cross was there, sitting at the console, typing furiously. He didn't turn around when he spoke. You shouldn't have come. Mira's voice was level. You shouldn't have run. He stopped typing. You don't understand what's happening. Then explain it. He turned slowly, eyes bloodshot, face gaunt. Meridian wasn't my program. It was Morrison's. The words hit like recoil. What? Cross stepped forward, palms raised slightly. You think I sold data? I was ordered to bury it. Meridian is a systemic deletion protocol. Every Ghost Annex operation, every asset, every record wiped from existence. I tried to stall it, reroute fragments to foreign archives so at least something would survive. Bishop growled, You expect us to believe that? I expect you to see how deep this goes, Cross said. Morrison's cleaning house. You're next. The silence stretched long. Mira's voice was almost a whisper. Morrison signed the chain of custody himself. He initiated the legal investigation. And now he's erasing the evidence that could convict him, Cross countered. Why do you think the meeting time changed in Ankara? He moved it early so you'd be isolated, disposable. The moment you left base, you were off record. Park looked up sharply. If that's true, command logs would show the order timestamp before our departure. Cross nodded. Exactly, but those logs are gone now. Then we verify it manually, Mira said. I'll contact March. Cross gave a bitter smile. March isn't answering, Lieutenant. He never was what you thought. Something in her chest tightened. You're lying. Am I? Before she could answer, Bishop's comm crackled with static. Heat signature, perimeter breach, multiple inbound. Park's eyes went wide. Contacts. Morrison's task team encrypted IFF tags. They're coming for us. Gunfire erupted outside before the sentence finished. Mira spun for cover, shouting, Positions. Bullets tore through the relay's walls, sparks raining down. Bishop returned fire through the side window, precision bursts. Park dove behind the console, grabbing the data drive. Cross fell to the ground, covering his head, shouting something lost in the roar of impact. Mira crawled low, dragging him behind a desk. Why are they shooting? She yelled. Because Morrison can't let any of us live long enough to talk, Cross gasped. Bishop leaned out, firing again. We can't hold here. Mira's voice was sharp. Park, route an uplink now. Signals jammed. Then record everything. Park slammed his tablet onto the console, forcing a local backup while rounds shredded metal overhead. The relay trembled under the barrage. Bishop shouted, "We need an exit." Mira scanned the layout in her memory, then pointed. Maintenance tunnel, northeast wall. They moved fast, covering one another with suppressive bursts. Cross stumbled behind them, clutching a briefcase tight. As they reached the tunnel entrance, Bishop turned for one final volley, covering their escape. A flashbang detonated near the doorway. White light swallowed everything. When the noise faded, Mira's vision returned in fragments. Bishop slumped against the wall, bleeding from the temple. She dragged him through the tunnel, half carrying, half pulling, until they broke into daylight again behind the ridge. The gunfire faded. The world went still again. Bishop coughed, breath ragged. "Tell me we got something." Park nodded weakly, clutching the tablet. "Partial data, but enough. Operation Meridian confirmed. Logs tie back to Morrison's authorization codes." Mira looked down at Bishop's wound, shallow but bleeding. "You'll live," she said. He smirked faintly. "You sound disappointed." Her mouth twitched, maybe a little. Cross leaned against a rock, face pale, trembling. "You have to take this to someone outside the system. Civil oversight, congressional intel board, anyone who still believes in process." Mira stared at him. "You believe in process now." He swallowed. "I believe in survival. If Morrison deletes Meridian's backups, you'll vanish next." She looked out over the scorched valley, sunlight cutting through dust like glass. The compass in her pocket pressed against her palm. "Ghosts don't vanish," she said quietly. "We adapt." By the time the sun fell, they had crossed into rural terrain, abandoned farmlands turned to wilderness. A safehouse still existed here, buried beneath a collapsed barn. Ghost Annex had used it once for deep cover. Inside, they patched Bishop's wound, set up perimeter surveillance, and powered down all comms. For the first time in hours, there was quiet again. Park hunched over his tablet, replaying fragments of corrupted footage, Morrison's orders appearing line by line, redacted headers, classified encryption stamps. "It's all there," he said softly. "Meridian's live. The deletion protocol starts within 48 hours. Once it triggers, every digital trace of Ghost Annex missions, personnel debriefs, gone forever." "And us?" Bishop asked. "Already ghosts on paper," Park said. "Soon we'll be ghosts in memory." Mira rubbed her temples. Fatigue was settling in, but her mind refused rest. "This was never about one man," she said finally. "Cross wasn't the monster, he was a symptom." "So what now?" Park asked. She looked up slowly. "Now we make sure the truth doesn't die quietly." Night deepened outside. The safehouse lights flickered, weak on old generators. Bishop dozed in the corner, breath uneven. Park typed endlessly, trying to break Morrison's encryption chain. Mira stepped outside, letting the cold desert air cut through the fatigue. Above her, the stars stretched infinite. Same sky her team had once navigated by. Same silence that followed them into every fight. She unclipped the compass from her neck, held it flat in her palm. The arrow still pointed true, always had, even when she didn't. She whispered into the wind, voice low enough for no one but ghosts to hear. "King Hope Rook, I'm still here, and I'm not done." Behind her, the safehouse door creaked open. Bishop stood there, pale but awake. "You talking to them again?" She didn't answer. He smiled faintly. "Good, means they're still listening." She turned, face half-lit by moonlight. "You ever think we're chasing ghosts so hard we'll forget to stop running?" He shrugged. "Maybe, but running, the only thing that keeps them alive." The wind picked up, whispering through the ruined barn above. Somewhere far away, deep in the chain of command, a progress bar filled across a government terminal. Meridian deletion sequence, 12%. Mira didn't know it yet, but the clock had started. And ghosts, for the first time, were racing against time itself. Fade to black. Why does betrayal always sound like silence first? The safe house lights flickered again. A low hum pulsed through the old concrete floor, faint, rhythmic, mechanical. Park looked up from his tablet. Generator's stable, but the network pulse isn't ours. Something pinging us every 45 seconds. Friendly? Bishop asked. Mira shook her head slowly. Nothing's friendly at this hour. She moved to the narrow window slit, scanning the horizon. The night outside was unnaturally calm. No crickets, no distant hum of engines. Just the wind whispering across dead wheat. She felt it before she saw it. A shift in air pressure, faint static crawling across her skin. A drone sweep. Park's voice came sharp. Infrared scan inbound. Kill the power, Mira ordered. The lights died instantly. The safe house plunged into darkness. Only the soft blue of Park's tablet remained, a ghostly glow hovering over his face. Meridian deletions at 38%, he said quietly. Morrison, pushing it faster. He's accelerating the purge. Bishop leaned forward, voice hoarse. Then we're running out of time. Mira's eyes stayed on the horizon. No, we're running out of patience. She turned to Park. How long to break the chain? He hesitated. If I push the processors, maybe 6 hours, but the uplink range is short. I'll need an open line, somewhere with satellite visibility. Then we move, she said, now. They left before sunrise, walking, not driving. Vehicles were trackers waiting to happen. The desert stretched endless, shifting colors from ash gray to gold as the light climbed higher. Every step was deliberate, measured. Survival had its rhythm. Bishop limped slightly, bandaged temple already dark with new sweat. You ever notice, he muttered, the closer we get to truth, the smaller the world feels. Mira glanced sideways. Truth has gravity. It pulls everything toward it, even the ones trying to escape. He gave a dry laugh. You should put that on a headstone. Maybe I will, she said. They reached the ridge by noon. An abandoned telecommunications tower half collapsed, once part of Ghost Annex relay grid. The metal still carried their old markings, worn but visible. G7 Hale Sector. Bishop stopped, touching the symbol with his fingers. You ever think about the ones we left behind? Every day, she said. And I still hear them when the wind hits right. They set up inside the broken tower, one working terminal, barely functional. Park connected his portable module, fingers moving faster than words. I can bypass Morrison's encryption, but I'll need to spoof a directorate signal. If I'm right, his purge runs through a failsafe command hub. Ankara Base, Sublevel 3. Bishop frowned. That's where we were 2 days ago. Exactly, Park said. He's covering his tracks where we already were, smart, predictable. Mira leaned against the cracked wall, scanning the sky through the open frame. You can break it. Park exhaled slowly. Maybe, but we'll need physical confirmation codes from Morrison's unit. Without them, the system will think we're the threat. Her gaze hardened. Then we take them. Bishop looked at her. That means going back into base territory. You realize what that means? Yeah, she said. It means we stop hiding. Night fell fast on the return march. By the time they reached the outer perimeter of the Ankara base, it was cloaked in layers of light and silence. Motion sensors, guard patrols, drone patterns looping every 4 minutes. Mira studied the timing through binoculars. Same defense cycle as 3 years ago, she murmured. You still remember the blind spots? Bishop asked. Every one of them. They moved like they had in the old days, shadows through shadow, every breath measured between footfalls. Inside, the air smelled of coolant and concrete dust. Park led them through maintenance corridors towards Sublevel 3. He whispered, once we hit the server room, the building will know. The moment we plug in, alarms or not, Morrison's system will see us. Mira gave a faint, cold smile. Then let it see. The server vault was a cathedral of machines, blue lights blinking like slow heartbeats. Each rack hummed with the sound of secrets being rewritten. At the far end, a single terminal glowed brighter than the rest, Morrison's authorization channel. On the monitor, meridian sequence, 71%. Park slid into position, connecting his drive. I can stall it, maybe reverse a few segments. Bishop stood guard at the doorway, rifle ready. Mira watched the code scroll, endless lines of deletion logs, names, ops, coordinates, vanishing into digital oblivion. Each line was a memory being erased. Then a voice echoed behind them. I wouldn't bother. They turned. General Morrison stood in the doorway, flanked by two armed officers. No surprise in his face, only fatigue, the calm of a man who'd already chosen his sin. Mira, he said quietly, you should have stayed gone. Sir, she replied, voice steady, you ordered the deletion. He sighed. You don't understand what Ghost Annex became. It was never supposed to exist this long. Politicians want plausible deniability. Every file you're trying to save is a threat to that illusion. So you kill the evidence, Bishop snapped. I'm cleaning the board, Morrison said. You can't imagine the chaos if this ever saw daylight. Entire foreign alliances would collapse. Mira stepped forward. You're erasing people, not files. You're burying lives that saved others. Those lives were already gone, he said, voice hardening. I'm giving them peace. Peace doesn't come from silence, she said softly. It comes from truth. Morrison's eyes flickered with something, doubt maybe, buried under years of justification. I trained you to follow orders, Lieutenant. And you trained me to see through lies, sir. The tension cracked like a wire stretched too tight. Bishop moved first, weapon half raised. The two guards mirrored him instantly. Mira raised a hand. Don't. For a moment, everything held still, just breathing, the hum of servers and the countdown pulsing on the monitor. Meridian, 83%. Park whispered, we're running out of time. Morrison's gaze shifted toward the screen. You can't stop it. Even if you kill me, the system finishes what I started. Maybe, Mira said, but we can change what it deletes. She moved fast. A flash, her knife, not her gun. She threw it underhand, a blur of steel slicing the fiber optic conduit beside Morrison. Sparks exploded. The screen flickered red. Park now. He slammed a command string into the drive, rerouting the cascade. Redirecting purge, 30% reversal. I can save fragments. Morrison shouted, lunging toward the terminal. Bishop fired once, a warning shot into the wall beside him. Stay back, Bishop growled. Morrison froze, chest heaving. You think this saves you? You think they'll let you walk away with this? No, Mira said, but someone will remember. The servers roared, fans accelerating, power spiking. Park yelled over the noise. We have maybe 2 minutes before overload. Copy the fragments, she said. I can't not here. We need external storage. Then take mine. She tore the compass from her neck, flipped open the casing, revealing a hidden micro drive soldered inside, the same she'd carried since Ghost Annex. Plug it in, she said. Park hesitated only a second before obeying. Data streamed into it, faint light pulsing like heartbeat under glass. Backup complete, he shouted. Morrison stepped forward again, voice rising above the chaos. You're destroying the chain of command. Mira faced him fully now, eyes calm, voice lower. No, sir, I'm rebuilding its conscience. He stared at her for a long second, the silence of understanding between two soldiers who knew the same truth. Sometimes loyalty was the weapon, and sometimes it was the wound. Then the power cut. The room plunged into black. For several seconds, there was only the sound of slowing fans and the crackle of dying circuits. When the backup generator failed, The base alarms began to wail, sharp, urgent, alive. They ran. Through corridors painted red by emergency lights, past guards shouting, doors sealing. Park clutched the compass drive tight against his chest. Bishop covered their retreat, firing controlled bursts into corners of darkness. They burst through a maintenance hatch into open air just as explosions rippled behind them, small, contained, surgical. The kind that erased systems, not people. They hit the dirt as a final shockwave rolled past. Then silence again. The base lights dimmed to black. In the distance, smoke rose like a thin ghost into the night sky. Bishop coughed, tasting dust. "Tell me you got it." Park nodded, breathless. "We did, not everything but enough. Ghost Annex lives on a fragment." Mira lay back against the sand, staring up at the stars. Sometimes a fragment's all history needs. They reached the outer valley before dawn. The world felt smaller now, quiet in a way that made breathing feel strange. Bishop limped beside her, the first hint of a smile in hours. "You realize we just declared war on the system we served?" Mira answered without looking at him. "We didn't declare anything, we just refused to disappear." Park glanced up from his tablet. "Signals live again. We can transmit the data fragment, but we only get one shot. After that, the network's gone for good." "Then send it to the people who can't ignore it," she said. "Who?" "The ones who still ask questions." He hesitated, then hit send. A progress bar filled slowly. When it reached 100%, Park exhaled. "It's out. Multiple nodes. Civilian news hubs, oversight committees, foreign networks. The truth's not ours anymore." "Good," Mira said softly. "That's how truth survives." Bishop looked at her, eyes heavy but proud. "What now?" "Now we vanish again." "And if they come for us?" She smiled faintly. "Let them, ghosts don't scare easy." She looked back once, toward the faint plume of smoke rising over Ankara. Somewhere behind it, the Meridian servers lay silent, dead metal buried in secrets. But in that silence she felt something else. Peace, maybe, or just exhaustion. It was hard to tell the difference anymore. Her voice softened, the tone of a closing voiceover, heavy and human. Sometimes the only way to keep history alive is to stop being part of it. Sometimes silence isn't surrender, it's strategy. She touched the compass at her throat, lighter now, empty of data but heavier with meaning. "Ghosts don't boast," she whispered. "They endure." The wind rose again, carrying dust and echoes through the valley. In that moment, under a sky vast and merciless, Mira Hale stopped being a soldier. She became something rarer, a witness. Fade to black. How long does it take for truth to travel the world? For Mira Hale, it was 11 hours. By dawn, her face was on every encrypted channel that still dared to publish outside official control. By noon, Meridian was no longer a code name. It was a headline. And by evening, the world had already begun to split. Park sat cross-legged on the floor of their new hideout, a forgotten villa near the Syrian border. The windows were covered with tarp, the air thick with heat and radio chatter. He scrolled through the data stream with shaking hands. "It's everywhere," he murmured. "BBC, Reuters, independent defense blogs, even the networks that used to bury our stories. They're calling it the Ghost Files." Bishop leaned against the wall, a half-empty water bottle dangling from his fingers. His face looked older under the dim light. "And Morrison?" "Gone," Park said. "Vanished off-grid. Command says medical leave, but that's just code for containment." Mira sat at the small table, compass lying open before her. Its microdrive slot was empty now, just smooth metal catching light. She didn't look up. He won't stay hidden. Men like him never do. They're built to control. Even when the world burns, they reach for the match again. Park exhaled, tension shaking through his shoulders. "We did it, you know. The truth's out. People know what Ghost Annex was, what it stood for. Bishop's voice was flat. And how many of them will care once the next scandal drops? No one answered. The silence said enough. Outside, the wind picked up hot, sharp, filled with sand. Mira stood, stretching the stiffness from her shoulders. Her body moved like it remembered everything, the discipline, the control, but her eyes looked distant now, unfocused, as if the horizon itself was starting to blur. "You okay?" Bishop asked quietly. She smiled faintly. "You ever wonder what okay even means after something like this?" He considered it. "Yeah, every day." "And still don't have an answer." She nodded once. That was all there was to say. By nightfall, the villa hummed with a different kind of energy, anticipation mixed with fear. Park had intercepted encrypted transmissions from a directorate strike team moving north. "They're hunting," he said, "not just us, anyone tied to Annex, former intel contractors, logistics contacts, families." Mira's jaw clenched. "He's trying to clean the rest." "Morrison," Bishop asked. "Or whoever replaced him, doesn't matter. The machine's still alive." Park looked between them. "We could run. We've got options: South America, Baltic coast, even remote Asia. With enough cash, we disappear for good." Mira's eyes stayed on the compass. "And what happens when the next meridian starts? When another name replaces ours on a screen?" He didn't answer. Because she was right. There was always another program, another ghost. She looked at Bishop. "We can't run, not yet." His tone was wary. "Then what's left?" "We find Morrison before they find us. He's the key. If he's alive, he's still trying to justify what he did. Men like him keep records, insurance." Park frowned. "How do you even find someone who trained half the intelligence community to vanish?" A ghost of a smile crossed her face. "You follow the patterns he taught us to hide." 3 days later, they were in Greece. The ferry ride across the Aegean was quiet, long stretches of nothing but sea and thought. Mira stood on deck, watching the horizon roll, salt wind cutting across her face. Bishop joined her, both hands resting on the rail. He nodded toward the water. "Feels strange, doesn't it?" "What does?" "Freedom." She almost laughed. "We're fugitives, that's not freedom." "Maybe not," he said. "But for the first time, no one's giving us orders." She didn't reply. The sea didn't need answers. Below deck, Park monitored transmissions on a makeshift setup powered by an old satellite phone. He caught something strange. A ping from an encrypted medical database out of Zurich, name flagged. Morrison, General Nathaniel. The coordinates matched a private rehabilitation facility under diplomatic cover. He looked up sharply. "Found him." Bishop stared. "That fast?" "Old habits die hard," Park said. "He's using the same signal masking he taught us years ago. He doesn't even realize it leaves a digital fingerprint." Mira's expression hardened. "He's in Switzerland, off-grid but reachable." "And heavily protected," Bishop warned. "That's fine," she said. "Ghosts don't knock." Zurich was cold even in summer, polished glass towers, reflecting mountains like they were part of some careful illusion. Their car rolled through quiet streets until the GPS pinged near the outskirts. A facility built into a hillside, white walls and security cameras disguised as art. Park tapped the map. 2 perimeter guards, 1 automated gate, facial recognition access. Bishop smirked. "Old school, I miss simple problems." Mira's voice was calm. "No heroics. We go silent, get what we need, and disappear before they know they've been breached." She slipped her earpiece in place, adjusted the suppressor on her sidearm, and looked at Bishop. "Ready." "Always." They moved at dusk, uniforms disguised as private contractors, badges spoofed from Park's database. The front gate scanned them, hesitated, then blinked green. "Authorized," a mechanical voice said. Inside, the air smelled sterile, antiseptic, and false calm. White corridors stretched endlessly. Patients slept behind tinted glass walls. But Morrison's room was different: 2 guards, biometric lock, 1 surveillance dome overhead. Mira signaled. Bishop handled the guards with surgical precision: no noise, no hesitation. Park disabled the camera. The red light blinked off. They entered. Morrison sat in a reclined bed, IV drip in one arm, oxygen line running to his nose. He looked smaller now, the power gone, the command tone stripped away. Only the eyes remained sharp. He didn't flinch when Mira stepped into the light. "I wondered how long it would take," he said softly. "You always liked being ahead," she replied. He studied her, then smiled faintly. "I suppose congratulations are in order. You made history again." "I didn't want history," she said, "just truth." He sighed, leaning back. "Truth isn't currency anymore, Lieutenant. It's spectacle. By next week they'll forget everything you risked." "Maybe," she said, "but not everyone forgets. Someone always remembers, even one's enough." He looked at Bishop. "You think you saved something noble, but you only shifted the target. Ghost Annex was a symptom. You just exposed the disease." Bishop stepped closer, anger rising. "Then name it." Morrison's eyes flickered to Mira. "You already know. Control. That's the only doctrine left. Control through fear, through silence, through manufactured truth." "Then we break it," Mira said quietly. He smiled sadly. "You can't break what you helped build." For a moment, the only sound was the beeping monitor beside him. Then Morrison's tone changed, quieter, almost human. "There's a file," he said. "Vault 0 beneath this facility. Insurance. Everything they made me erase, I kept a copy, because someday I knew someone like you would come." "Where?" "Sublevel access under the med wing. You'll need my print." She stared at him. "Why help us now?" He looked away. "Because when I ordered your unit's deletion, I knew it was wrong. I told myself it was mercy. It was fear." She stepped closer. "Then make it right." He extended his hand, frail, trembling. She took it, pressed his thumb to her tablet, capturing the authorization code. When she looked back up, his eyes had closed. The monitor flattened into a single tone. Bishop exhaled. "He waited for us." Mira nodded. "And now we finish it." Vault 0 wasn't on any blueprint, but Morrison's code opened a hidden passage near the storage wing, a door disguised as part of the wall, sliding open on silent hydraulics. They descended narrow stairs into a cold chamber that smelled of oil and electricity. Rows of old data cores lined the walls, analog, not digital, impossible to hack remotely. Park's breath caught. "It's all here, every op, every mission we ever ran, unedited." Mira walked slowly down the aisle, fingertips brushing the metal casings. It felt like walking through memory. "Download everything," she said, "then wipe the physical drives." Bishop frowned. "You sure this is our history?" "History gets rewritten, but data survives. If they find this place, they'll bury it again. We make sure they can't." Park worked fast, copying terabytes onto encrypted microdrives. Each blink of light was another life reclaimed from oblivion. When it was done, Mira pulled out a detonator. Bishop gave her a long look. "You really mean to burn it all?" She nodded. "Ghosts deserve peace." They walked out as the charges armed behind them. In the elevator, Park whispered, 10 seconds. When the blast came, it was soft, a deep thud swallowed by concrete. The building above trembled, then went still. No alarms, no pursuit, just quiet. Outside, night cloaked Zurich in silver and ash. They moved along the lakeside, their reflections ghosting across dark water. Park held the microdrives like fragile glass. "So what now?" "Now," Mira said, "we make sure the truth never dies in one place again." Bishop nodded toward the horizon. "And us." We disappear again. He smiled faintly. Ghosts to the end, huh? Not ghosts, she said softly. Witnesses. They reached the end of the pier. The wind was cold but clean, the kind that stripped everything false away. She looked out over the water and let herself breathe for the first time in days. In voiceover tone, soft but unflinching. Some truths cost you everything. Some take years to surface, and when they finally do, no one's left to hear them. But they matter, because silence only wins when no one dares to break it. She dropped the compass into the lake, the ripples widening, fatting, disappearing under moonlight. Goodbye, she whispered, not to a person, but to the life that once obeyed. The water swallowed the sound. And for the first time, the ghosts rested quietly. Fade to black. How do you measure the weight of truth when the whole world starts to bend beneath it? Mira didn't sleep the night Zurich burned. None of them did. The city woke to the sound of distant sirens and the hum of helicopters over the lake. The news was already calling it a minor explosion, a fire in a storage wing, an isolated malfunction. But every operative who had ever served in the hidden circuits of Ghost Annex knew better. Something buried had clawed its way out of the dark, and someone had paid for it. By the time the sun broke across the Alps, they were already gone. New names, new passports, another border. Mira sat in the back of a freight truck bound for northern Italy, watching sunlight crawl through the gaps in the tarp. The hum of the road blended with her heartbeat, steady, cold, relentless. Bishop sat opposite her, rifle disassembled at his side, cleaning each piece with ritual precision. Park slept lightly, head against a crate, one hand still clutching the encrypted drives like they were sacred text. She glanced at him, then at Bishop. What if this was all for nothing? She asked quietly. Bishop looked up. You think truth's nothing? I think truth without change is noise, she said. We bled for headlines, they'll fade. He gave a tired smile. You've been watching too much news. Maybe, she said, but I know how fast the world forgets. He leaned back, exhaling smoke from an unlit cigarette, a habit without purpose. Maybe it's not about the world remembering. Maybe it's about us not forgetting. The words hung there simple, raw. And for a moment, she let herself believe that was enough. By the second week, chaos had a rhythm. Governments denied involvement. Allied intelligence networks fractured. New agencies rose overnight, promising restructuring and reform. But behind every press briefing, someone was still sweeping the dirt under new rugs. Park spent nights glued to the feeds, his eyes bloodshot, voice hoarse from endless decoding. Half the Meridian archives we leaked are being suppressed already, he said one morning. Legal takedowns, counterclaims, national security exemptions. They're trying to erase the truth a second time. Bishop chuckled bitterly. Round two of the same fight. Mira's gaze stayed fixed on the map spread across the table. Then we adapt, again. She drew 3 lines across Europe, old Ghost Annex corridors. Smuggling routes turned ghost channels. Where does it lead? Park asked. Not where, she said. Who? Her pen stopped at a name circled in ink. Ria Hassan. Bishop frowned. That's impossible, Hassan's dead. She was supposed to be, Mira said. But she's the one who built Annex's civilian relay before it was shut down. If anyone can distribute the full data without filters, it's her. Park tilted his head. And where do we find a dead woman? Mira looked up, eyes hard. In the last place she ever trusted, the place they all forgot. They reached Istanbul by train under false IDs. 3 ghosts in a city built on ghosts. The city was loud, alive, too bright after the quiet of hiding. But Mira liked it that way, the noise hid intention. They followed old contacts, quiet calls, coded messages disguised as shipment requests. Each led them closer until they found it, an abandoned library beneath the Galata Quarter. Inside, the smell of dust and paper mixed with electricity. A soft light flickered at the back, a woman hunched over a laptop, hair streaked with silver, eyes sharp despite the years. "I thought I'd seen my last annex file," she said without turning. Mira stepped into the light. "You should have known better." Rhea Hassan looked up, and for a moment, surprise broke through her composure. "You're supposed to be dead." "So are you," Mira replied. Rhea smiled faintly. "Guess we both failed the system." They sat across from each other, no pretense left. Mira placed the micro drives on the table. "Meridian, everything Morrison buried." Rhea's eyes widened. "You have it." "Most of it, enough to light fires again." "And you came to me for what?" "Distribution, untraceable, global, permanent." Rhea leaned back, studying her. "You're asking me to break the world's spine." "It already broke," Mira said. "We're just forcing people to notice." Rhea's laughter was quiet, sad. "You think exposure fixes rot. You don't destroy corruption by showing it. You starve it slowly, silently." Mira's tone didn't change. "Silence is what built Meridian." The older woman's eyes softened. "You really haven't changed, have you? Always believing one act can fix the system." "I don't believe in fixing," Mira said. "I believe in remembering." Rhea looked at her for a long moment, then nodded once. "All right, leave the drives, I'll handle it. But once I start, there's no taking it back. You'll be hunted again, worse this time." Mira smiled faintly. "You think we stopped being hunted?" Rhea reached across, took the drives carefully, and slid them into her bag. "You always did have the world's worst survival instincts," she said softly. "And you always had the best conscience," Mira replied. "Funny thing about conscience," Rhea murmured. "It doesn't let you sleep." They both smiled, and for a second the years between them disappeared. That night they stayed in an old apartment overlooking the Bosphorus. Wind carried the hum of ships through half-broken windows. Bishop cleaned his rifle again, a habit he couldn't let go. Park lay on the couch, typing until his hands cramped, helping Rhea's network reroute signals through dark servers. Mira sat on the balcony, watching city lights shimmer like distant fire. Her voiceover tone was quiet, reflective. "Some wars never end. They just change shape. The uniforms fade, the orders vanish, but the weight stays, sitting in your bones like unfinished sentences." She closed her eyes. For the first time in years, she saw the faces again: King, Hope, Rook, the ones who didn't make it. She whispered their names into the night, each like a promise she still meant to keep. Behind her, Bishop's voice cut through the quiet. "They'll come for us again, you know." "I know. You ready for that?" She turned slightly, the faintest smile touching her lips. "I was born ready, just didn't know what for until now." He nodded. "Then we go out standing." But before either could say more, Park's tablet chirped sharply, 3 tones in rapid sequence. Rhea's emergency code. Mira was already moving before the words formed. "Track it." "Source burned," Park said, eyes wide. "Server hit by Black Ops breach. They're tracing the signal." "How close?" He swallowed. "Here." The first explosion hit the lower street, a concussive wave that shattered glass and memory alike. Bishop grabbed his gear, shouting, "Move, roof exit." Park stuffed his tablet into his bag, coughing through smoke. Mira moved last, calm even as chaos bloomed below. They reached the roof just as a black helicopter swept in low, spotlights cutting through the haze. "Back doors closed," Bishop yelled. Mira raised her rifle, sighting the cockpit. "Then we make a new door." She fired once, clean, controlled. The round cracked the spotlight, sending the craft banking sideways. They sprinted across rooftops, smoke curling in the moonlight. Park shouted, "Rhea's signal just went dead." Mira's heart clenched. "Then we finish what she started." They leapt the final gap to an adjoining building as the apartment behind them erupted into flame. For a long second they stood there, silhouettes against firelight, ghosts watching their past burn. Bishop exhaled, chest heaving. "You okay?" Mira nodded, eyes locked on the inferno. She knew the risk. "And us?" She turned to him slowly. "We're the evidence now." Hours later, they found shelter in a freight tunnel outside the city. Cold, dark, damp. Park sat against the wall, shaking. "She didn't make it." Mira crouched beside him. "She did. You saw the upload confirm." He looked up, tears cutting through soot. "You really think it matters now?" "It always matters," she said quietly, "even if no one's left to see it." Bishop sat nearby, listening but not speaking. His silence said what none of them could: the cost was catching up. Mira pulled her knees close, her voice barely above a whisper. "Every truth we expose kills something in us, but lies kill everything else." The tunnel settled into stillness. Only the wind outside seemed alive, carrying sirens that sounded like ghosts calling home. By morning, the world had changed again. The remaining Ghost Annex files went public. The truth scattered, impossible to erase now. Some governments fell, others tightened their grip. But everywhere, whispers started, quiet voices asking who the ghosts were, what they died for, and why no one ever said their names aloud before. Bishop watched the headlines scroll on a cracked phone. "We did it," he said. "Maybe not clean, maybe not pretty, but we did it." Mira nodded. "Now the world decides what that means." He looked at her for a long time. "You think they'll ever thank us?" She smiled faintly. "Heroes get statues, ghosts get silence. I'll take silence." Her voice softened, almost like the closing note of a prayer. "Some truths don't save the world. They just save the part of you that still believes it can be better." She stood, dusted the dirt from her hands, and looked toward the light breaking through the tunnel's end. The road ahead was uncertain, but for once it didn't feel like exile. It felt like purpose. And for Mira Hale, that was enough. How does a ghost fade when the world finally remembers her name? The storm came 3 days after Istanbul burned. Cold rain swept across the borderlands, washing soot from the rooftops and turning the dirt roads into mirrors. Mira Hale stood on a hillside outside an abandoned monastery, watching smoke coil from distant towns. She didn't move for a long time. Her rifle was gone, her dog tags too. Only the compass remained, now just a hollow locket with no metal inside. Behind her, Bishop limped up the slope, hood pulled low. "We need to move," he said. "Drones are still sweeping the coast." She didn't answer. Her eyes followed a single black hawk cutting through the clouds. "How far do you think truth travels before someone shoots it down?" she asked quietly. Bishop gave a dry laugh. "Depends who's aiming." He stopped beside her, scanning the valley. "You could still walk away, you know. No one would blame you." She turned toward him. "That's the problem, isn't it? No one ever blames the ghosts." He looked at her for a moment, then shook his head. "You talk like we're already dead." She smiled faintly. "Maybe we are, just taking our time realizing it." By night, they reached the monastery's inner chambers, stone, candlelight, silence. Park was there, working by the dim glow of an old monitor powered through salvaged wiring. His face was pale, sleepless. "Signal's holding," he said. "The files are everywhere now, thousands of mirrors. Every time they delete one, 10 more appear." Bishop dropped a ration pack on the table. "So we won." Park gave a humorless chuckle. "Define win." "The world's panicking. Some nations calling it treason, others demanding trials, and us, we're still on every most wanted list." Mira sat across from him, fingers tracing the old compass grooves. "Truth isn't supposed to make people comfortable," she said. "It's supposed to make them choose." For a while, the only sound was rain dripping through the ceiling cracks. Then Park asked softly, So what happens to us now? Mira didn't look up. We disappear like we were meant to. He stared, that's it, after everything. She nodded slowly. Ghosts don't stay, they just leave enough echoes behind. They split at dawn. Park headed north under a civilian ID, carrying one copy of the drives. Bishop took the southern route, a border runner convoy disguised as medical relief. Mira stayed behind. No one argued. She told them she'd follow later, but they knew she wouldn't. When Bishop hugged her, it was brief, soldier's code for goodbye. He looked at her once more before leaving. You sure you don't want company? I've had enough witnesses, she said softly. He gave a tired smile. Then promise me one thing, don't die quietly. She nodded, not my style. Park lingered longer, eyes red. You taught me something, he said. That silence can scream louder than any gunfire. She smiled faintly. And you taught me that even ghosts need someone to listen. Then they were gone. And Mira Hale, the woman who'd once brought down Meridian, was finally alone. Days blurred. She walked through villages that didn't know her name, along rivers that swallowed every footprint by dawn. Her reflection in windows looked foreign now, older, thinner, but free in ways she hadn't expected. Everywhere she went, she saw pieces of what they'd started. People arguing in cafes about the ghost files. Young recruits whispering that maybe the system wasn't perfect after all. A journalist on a cracked television saying, if even half of what's in these documents is true, history has been rewritten by silence. Mira smiled faintly at that. History has been rewritten by silence. Maybe that was the point all along. At night she camped near the sea. The horizon stretched endless, and the world finally felt quiet enough to hear itself think. Sometimes she'd talk softly, not to anyone near, but to the memories that followed her like shadows. King, she'd whisper. Hope. Rook. Each name a flicker of something once whole, now fragments scattered through time. She never cried. She spent those tears years ago. But sometimes, when the wind shifted, her voice trembled just enough to betray how heavy remembering really was. Weeks passed. In the cities, riots gave way to debates, and debates to silence again. The world moved on as it always did. But somewhere in the static, her name still traveled, not in headlines, not in reports, but in the pauses of soldiers telling stories they shouldn't have known. One afternoon, she stopped at a coastal fishing town. The harbor was quiet except for gulls and the sound of wooden boats hitting the tide. A man sat near the docks, tuning an old radio. When she passed, the broadcast caught her attention, a voice reading from an official statement. The individuals responsible for the data breach remain unidentified. However, the material revealed by the ghost files has prompted the formation of a new oversight council to review covert military operations. The man looked up at her, oblivious. Crazy world, huh? She smiled, always has been. He chuckled. Whoever those ghosts were, they did something big. She nodded slowly. Yeah, they did. Then she walked away before he could ask her name. That night she climbed the cliffs above the town, wind tearing at her coat, sea crashing far below. She sat on a ledge, knees drawn close, and pulled out a small object wrapped in cloth. The compass. It was empty now, no microdrive, no mission left inside, just a circle of quiet metal reflecting the sky. She turned it over in her hand, thumb brushing the engraving on the back. Find true north. For years, that phrase had meant duty. Now it meant something else. Peace, maybe. Or the absence of orders. Her voiceover tone was low, measured, almost like confession. You spend long enough following orders, and you forget what your own direction sounds like. You start mistaking silence for peace. But peace isn't quiet. It's the sound of finally not needing permission to breathe. She smiled faintly. Guess I finally found it. Lightning flickered far across the water. She stayed there until dawn, watching the storm fade into light. In another part of the world, months later, Park opened a letter delivered by hand, no return address, no signature. Inside was a single photo. A shoreline at dawn, a compass half buried in the sand, and a set of footprints leading into the surf. He showed it to Bishop when they met again in a safe house on the Baltic coast. Bishop looked at it for a long time, then nodded. "She's gone." Park's voice was quiet. "You think she's alive?" Bishop smiled faintly. "Ghosts don't die, they just find quieter wars." They hung the photo on the wall. No words, no ceremony. Just a reminder of what truth costs and why it was worth paying. Months later, the world adjusted. The Oversight Council became a headline. The ghost files turned into documentaries. Names were debated, blurred, forgotten. But somewhere in every retelling, one detail always stayed the same. A quiet woman, never named, who'd walked into silence and left it forever changed. In classrooms, cadets studied her missions. In boardrooms, officials cursed her memory. And in the homes of those she'd once saved without ever meeting, her story was told like a myth. The sniper who saw farther than anyone, not with her scope, but with her heart. No one ever found the body. Just the compass rusted, its arrow still pointing north. Voiceover tone, slow, poetic, cinematic. She was never the loud one in the room, never the one to raise her voice or demand the credit. But when the moment came, she didn't need to speak. She just acted. And that's the thing about dignity, it doesn't shout. It stands. It endures. It waits until the world's noise dies down enough to hear what silence was saying all along. They called her a traitor, a hero, a myth. But she was none of those. She was a reminder that courage doesn't always roar. Sometimes it whispers. Sometimes it just refuses to vanish. And somewhere in the quiet between waves and wind, maybe she still listens. Not for orders, not for redemption, just for peace. The camera would pull back here, the sea stretching infinite, the horizon glowing faintly gold. One last whisper beneath the music.